it moves really smoothly from secondary dominance to move to modulation because they're so interrelated. Modulation is the middle portion, the middle topic for Unit 4, and it has to do with just changing key. Modulation is easy, you just change key. If you remember, we talked about tonicization being a continuum with secondary dominance at one end, close to one end, because they're so short-lived and only involve just a couple chords. The chord that tonicizes something else. So just a 5 of 5 is an individual chord that makes 5 sound as if it were tonic, but just for the moment. If we want to do something longer, we can go to the other, close to the other end of the spectrum, which is modulation, and that's where you've got not just a secondary dominant or a secondary leading tone chord, but you've got a set of chords that all belong to the new key. So they're different because you're involving more material. And in the end, you as a listener shift gears and realize, oh, we're in a new place now. We've shifted to this other key, and I buy that new key as my tonic. As you listen to more music and as you study more music, I think you'll come to find that even though it modulates, you are still aware of your old key center. You know where home base is. You know the tonic for the piece, despite the fact that you're hearing music that's in some other key. And that means you're not hearing it quite the same as you used to. Maybe at the beginning you bought into that new key and that was your tonic now. So I don't mean that you can't remember your home key. And I'm not saying that you'll necessarily switch over and have, if I said sing tonic, you wouldn't necessarily sing the new tonic, but you realize that a set of chords is operating in another key. If that happens, that's modulation. So take a look at this handout. This is available to you so you can read through it. Modulation is just a change of key. And when does a tonicization qualify as a modulation? Well, there's really no clear-cut boundary between the two. So here are some factors that tip the balance. One of them is strength of cadence. If there's a conclusive cadence in the new key, you're more likely to buy that key as established, as your new tonal center. The type of cadence determines the conclusiveness, but the presence of a potential 6/4, the presence of a predominant, can help also in establishing that new key. Cadential 6/4s help to signal that a cadence is on its way and help pin down that new key for you. Number 2, length of tonicization. How long do you remain in that new key? If there's a long tonicization, it doesn't really matter what the cadence type, you'll realize that we're operating with a new key center, a new tonal center. The new key may continue past the first cadence in the new key, thus lengthening the tonicization. The main issue is how many chords are involved. Here you've got a predominant involved as well as a dominant. Here, because of the length of time involved, you're probably going to involve more chords. So that's a big deal. How long and how many chords are involved in this new key. There are smooth modulations and there are abrupt modulations. There are a variety of terms that are used in these two cases, but I think these do it for me. If it's smooth, I mean you ease into it and there isn't some jostling bump in the road that says, we shifted. So how can you ease into a new key? A seamless transition. Number 1, you can use a pivot chord. It's a chord that belongs to both keys. And as an analytical issue or as a listening issue, what you're going to be doing is saying, okay, now I hear that we're in the new key, and then retrospectively you go backwards in time and say, now, where could I have found a chord? Where can I find a chord that belongs to both keys? So do you hear a pivot? Well, no, you can't hear it because it's only once you've gone to the new key that you perceive a modulation, and it's in retrospect that you find something previous to that point that's common ground. It belongs to the old key and to the new. Visually, you often can tell that you're in a new key because you've got accidentals. You want to find a pivot chord. You want to locate the pivot before the first accidental belonging to the new key, the second key. The pivot is often a predominant in the new key. Well, that's sort of, these two go hand in hand. The first accidental is usually a leading tone, and that means you're dealing with a dominant functioning chord. And if you back up, you're probably on a predominant. So that's why a pivot is often a predominant in terms of the new key. Another way to ease into a new key is to use a sequence. I like to think of it as like a merry-go-round. It just keeps, a sequence is a process that keeps going around and around. It's got its process set up and does its thing. But the real choice is, where do I get off? And if I go, oh, I'm going to get off here, you're in a new key. But if I go all the way around, I come back to where I started, you can stay in the same key. Especially descending fifths work in this manner. Descending fifths can go all the way around and get you right back home. But just imagine if you have secondary dominants in the mix, say alternating secondary dominants, then you're getting, it's sort of getting your ear used to tonicizing different things all the way around. And if you just decide, I'm not going to go any further here, I'm going to jump off the sequence and I'm going to continue with this chord right here as my tonic chord, as some other chord in this key, I can hop off and go in that direction. The sequence is the way to get access to these different key centers. It's like a merry-go-round. A sequence can take you in many directions. It all depends on where you get off. Sequences can carry the music up or down by step, or else down by thirds. Think back to sequences and think of all those types that we had, and you'll see how that's true. That's where the main kinds of sequences take us. A chord within a sequence may be reinterpreted as a chord within a new key. Right? So there's still this reinterpretation going on, but the sequence is the process that eases us into it. That makes it part of the smooth modulation category. Then down below we have abrupt modulations. These are sudden. The idea is not to ease you in, but to startle you, maybe for some effective reason. Maybe you want to create a new section that needs to be separate from what's happened before. And the startle value is good because it's like, perk up your ears and listen, here's something fresh and new. Ternary form often uses a change of key to set off the B material. So you got your old A material, and then the B material comes in a fresh new key, and it adds to the contrast and to the interest of the piece to have a start divide, complete contrast at that beginning point, the beginning of the B material. Sometimes it's a matter of, within a section, wanting to create like a powerful shift. Maybe it's at a climactic thing. You build up to this thing and then wham, you're in a new key, and a new theme, say, makes its appearance there. But that's going to be, it's going to have some sort of a revelatory effect. Here's something new. And it's a way to underline motivic or thematic events. It often comes at seams. It helps create formal divides between sections and things. So abrupt modulation, it's not as if it's unartful. It can be used for great effect. Okay, let's let that go, and then our next step will be looking at some examples of modulation.